Hello there, BookTube. My name is Daniel. Welcome back to my channel, Guilty Feet. Speed so fast, felt like I was drunk. City lights laid out before us, and your arm felt nice wrapped round my shoulder, and I've got no rhythm. And today I want to do a wrap up of everything I've read. We took a break last week, so I've got like just a week and a bit's worth of reading. And we took a break and went away to the spa in the north of Israel and sat by the pool for 4.5 days and had a marvelous time. And I've got some video of that, so it's sort of a vlog of me as we go along reading and getting through the books that I read, and I'll take you through that. But start off where I was when we last spoke. I was reading The Belly of Paris by Émile Zola. So I had read Annie Ernaux's Happening and was on a French kick, so I read another novel in translation. This is the third in the Rougon-Macquart series. And I think it's the third one to be translated by Brian Nelson. I don't think he's translated all 20, but I think he's translated each of the 3 that I've read, and I've got them all in these Oxford World Classics editions with the red bar at the top. And I bought them all new because I wanted, some kind of continuity. It's my concession to reading something which isn't a Penguin classic, and the ones that I like with the red bar and the black spine. Anyway, the third, so the first started strong series. And then the second one, I was a little Le Curé, The Kill was I was not so hot on, and this is good. It's a little on the nose. So this is The Belly of Paris, and it's a satire, if you like, on the greed and the food and the amount of avarice and waste that is taking place in Paris at this time. So it's set around the markets have just been revitalized. Les Halles have been rebuilt, and the people come in every morning with produce from all over the country to try and sell it, and they sell it to someone else who sells it to someone else. And the new wealthy class are the cheesemakers and the butchers and the bakers, and this is the class that will, they're selling and rising up through society and becoming more successful if you manage to put together a little shop and enterprise. They work very hard producing food, but there is money to buy it, and this is an entry into, I guess, the middle classes. So there's a lot of smelling of food, savoring of food, hunger amongst the people who are hungry, and then there are people who gorge themselves on every aspect of life, including food, but other appetites as well are indulged. So yeah, it was a little, for a satire, it's a little on the nose. It's all about the smell, and it's all about the food and the oils and the rennet and the pork loins being butchered and fed, and the sausages being stuffed into the skins. There's a lot of the mechanics of food, and then in the background, the story is of a man who was deported and has escaped from Devil's Island and made his way back to Paris and is trying to find his way back into society. Doesn't really want to work for the man, but ends up taking a job sort of representing the man, and how that plays out and how that works for him. And so there is plot, and it sort of has a spiral down, but it's mainly things happening, and the plot is incidental. It's about that feeling and about that people who gorge themselves do well, and there are other people who will always be hungry and always on the periphery and never manage to fill themselves up and satisfy themselves at a time of change and a time of growth and growing wealth in Paris. So enjoyed that. Back on track, I guess, after the second one, which had me doubting whether I would carry on with this project. So I'm now 3 down, 17 to go, and I think at some point this year I will pick up the 4th one, and at some point I'll get to, these are, each one is 270 pages. They're not the easiest, quickest, lightest read, even though at least for a Victorian novel they are shorter than the trollops that I've been, the 700, 800, 900 page trollops that I've been going through. So I think I may, give another one a shot and see if we can get 4 down, we can get closer to completing the 20-book cycle. That is The Belly of Paris by Émile Zola, and this is in translation by Brian Nelson. And then, knowing that we were going away, that we were going to the spa, and I would have some unlimited midweek reading time, I decided I would pick up and start reading the Demon Copperhead. So I started this, and then on Monday of last week, we made our way to the spa and settled in there. So we got there sort of in the afternoon and settled in around the pool very quickly. And here's a video of me settling in around the pool. Day 1, back at the spa. brought a few books with me to cover the next couple of days. It's the afternoon, so my preferred spot, which is one of those beds over there, are all taken, but tomorrow morning I will reclaim my rightful space. For now, back to okay, and so I read about 100 pages of Demon Copperhead that day, and so the next day woke up Tuesday morning and carried on reading, and here is some video of that. Um, It's about 9:15 in the morning. I've just finished breakfast and I have claimed one of the beds around the pool. So if you see those beds at the upper end of the pool, I'm in one of those. And you can see I've got a few to the right of me and one to the left of me. And there are also deck chairs and little beds and all sorts of things going on all around the pool. My wife will be down shortly. She went for an early morning walk through the mountains, so she's just changing, but I've come straight down here, and people will bring me drinks or snacks or whatever I need around the pool, and so I probably won't touch the floor again for the next 8-9 hours. I've got my reading material here. I've got 100 pages into Demon Copperhead, and I've got also today's Haaretz, which comes with parts of the New York Times, and that should see me through the rest of the day. Hope you're all keeping well, and onwards and upwards. Bye. And then on day 3, so Wednesday, I finished Demon Copperhead, and so I've got some video now of me finishing the book, and then my instant, on the spot, one-word review. So I'll put that in now. Good. So, in a nutshell, that was my instantaneous response. But I'll tell you, I thought it was terrific. Lots of things to compare it to, I guess. One second, let me pick up a couple of things. I just want to bring them in. So, for those of you down to the last 2 or 3 people left on the planet who don't know, Demon Copperhead is a kind of retelling of David Copperfield. I've read David Copperfield and loved it. I haven't read all of Dickens. I've read maybe 5, 6, 7 of the novels, including David Copperfield, which is my favourite of everything of his that I've read so far. It worked for me on every level, and so what Demon Copperhead takes mostly from David Copperfield is Dickens' obsession with plot. Lots of plot and lots of plot in Demon Copperhead. That's not a criticism in any shape or form. And also character, of course. So characters in David Copperfield are Peggotty and famous Barkis is Willing, and Micawbers, always spending beyond their means and living beyond their means, and the oily Uriah Heep. And each of those have parallels in Demon Copperhead. So in that respect, it's the book is paralleling David Copperfield, but I don't think you have. My wife is 100 pages from the end. She started reading this after me because she saw what a good time I was having it, and she has not read David Copperfield, and some of the references would have gone over her head, and she didn't know who the characters were, and I didn't remember exactly who the names of the people that Copperfield ends up with, and you don't have to know all that and be aware of all that in order to get anything out of it. It's just a terrific novel. I don't think it's misery porn anywhere on the level of A Little Life, and I say that as a huge fan of A Little Life. And my wife reminded me that we were sitting on this bed by the pool at the spa, and that was the exact same place she was sitting when she read A Little Life like 3 or 4 years ago. And so there was some power. There is sadness in here. We're in the South, and there's drug abuse and doomed relationships, and too many people dying young, either because of addiction to opiates or just other miserable aspects of a rural life. But there's other sharp things as well. I wanted to compare it to or 2 other reference points that I had. First of all, a book that I don't think many people have read. If they have, they might have forgotten it. This is a Junk by Melvin Burgess, which was published as a children's book. I think it was published in America as Smack. So Junk is heroin. And I remember this won an award from The Guardian when this came out, and it won the Guardian Fiction Award and the Carnegie Medal. So that was a big deal. And it's aimed at kids, but it is a harrowing, terrifying, very, very sad story about a teenage boy's spiral into addiction, and the friend, his girlfriend, the boy is called Tar, T-A-R, and his girlfriend is Gemma. and the way these two young teens do to debase themselves in order to maintain heroin addiction. Not quite the same as addiction to OxyContin and opioids, but there are clear parallels between these two kinds of addiction and what they mean. And I guess there are also people who have led fairly um, um, uh, um, I'm not quite sure what the word is, but have continued to lead semi-productive lives while maintaining addiction to these things. And that's something that Demon managed to do, but not everyone around him does until it becomes too much. But this was very sad. Book still makes me cry when I remember it, what Tar goes through. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful book that's still aimed at children, but really harsh. My kids did read this after I read it when they were sort of 13, 14. I think it was had a profound impact on them too. But I would recommend going back and read that if you have any interest in the more literary aspects of what is sold as YA junk or smack if you're in America. Is a fantastic, fantastic book. And then the other reference point, of course, is for me was Empire of Pain. Also, no, yeah, Empire of Pain by Patrick Radden Keefe, which was I read it, and my wife read it, and then I just got this back from my in-laws who were reading it, and a terrific work, profoundly well researched. I had some issues with the demonization of the Sackler family as the root of everything. Yes, of course they are, but there's greater things going on, and that's the kind of thing that Demon Copperhead explores. This reference all the way through. The shining light in this book is June, and as she says, this is not something you did to yourself. This is something that's been done to you. That refrain that recurs again and again. That actually, at the time when rural life was unfettered by people in government, they couldn't. These people in the country had land, were able to sustain themselves on food they were growing and bartering and working and living as a community, and the imposition of taxes from a federal government it was just in order to try and control these people who didn't need the federal government in order to live their lives. And this theme that the conflict between city living and country living, the differences, how important having a bed is, or how important having food is, and the differences in that if you're poor and homeless in the city as opposed to poor and homeless in the country. There's a lot of really smart stuff going on underneath this David Copperfield. So you don't need the David Copperfield stuff. Demon Copperhead stands alone as a great story, full of plot, full of character, but fantastic. There's one part that I want to read. I will try and do it without crying because this was a reference for me which hit home. It's very. If you told me that my first Barbara Kingsolver, if you told me that she was 45, 50 years old, I would have believed it because the references are very sharp, very smart, and very current. But let me just read you this one paragraph. So Demon is our hero, right? And the whole thing is in the first person. And this is one of the times where he's actually people caring enough about him to try and make sure he gets an education. And he says, I can't do an accent of any kind, I apologize. He says, I had to do the harder English, which was a time suck reading books. Some of them, though, I finished without meaning to. I'm going to tear up when I say this. That Holden guy held my interest. Hating school, going to the city to chase whores and watch rich people's nonsense. And then you come to find out all he wants in his heart is to stand at the edge of the field, catching little boys before they go over the cliff like he did. I could see that. I mean, I see it. I drew it with those white cliffs on the Kentucky border where Miss Barks took me that time. I've not ever seen rye growing, so I made him the catcher in the tobacco. Likewise, that Charles Dickens one. Seriously old guy, dead and a foreigner, but Christ Jesus, did he get the picture on kids and orphans getting screwed over and nobody giving a rat's ass. So in one paragraph, 374 pages in the book, we got the reference to Holden Caulfield, The Catcher in the Rye, and a book that profoundly impacted me when I read it. And I know it's gone through a thing where people now, well, he's just a kid suffering with mental illness, and Holden Caulfield has been dismissed by a whole generation and is maybe having a little bit of a renaissance. But for me, it was always a powerful story, even when I didn't realize that he's an unreliable narrator, even when I was all in as a 14-year-old on being Holden Caulfield and identifying with that sense that everyone's a phony and nobody understands me. And to see that come up here, this idea that all he wanted to be was the catcher in the rye, and in Demon's frame of reference, The Catcher in the Tobacco Field. That was very moving. And then the nice little touch throwing in a comment about Dickens there as well. It's something I never do. This is later me coming back in because there was a specific point that I wanted to make and forgot altogether about Holden Caulfield and David Copperfield and Demon Copperhead. So the reason why the reference to Holden Caulfield from Demon Copperhead, a book that is based on David Copperfield, is so meaningful to me is because it continues to complete that circle. My lifetime of reading all leads up to these moments of worlds colliding. And for those of you who don't understand why, the opening paragraph of The Catcher in the Rye, the book that Holden Caulfield appears in, goes like this. If you really want to hear about it, the first thing you'll probably want to know is where I was born, what my lousy childhood was like, and how my parents were occupied and all that, and all before they had me, and all that David Copperfield kind of crap. But I really don't feel like going into it. And that's the opening of David Copperfield as him being born, the opening of Demon Copperhead. He talks about how he was born in the call, which is supposed to protect him from drowning. And of course, Holden Caulfield starts out like that. J.D. Salinger writes Holden Caulfield started at that point referencing David Copperfield and this kind of autobiographical first-person narratives. It's everything that I read has come together. Okay, enough. Right, I'll take you back to where I was. I thought this was fantastic. Worthy of all the praise, a fine novel. I'm pleased it won the Pulitzer. I'm pleased it won the Women's Prize. I couldn't care less whether it's on the long list or not. But I have no doubt. I said before I read it that I think it must be better than, let's say, 4 of the books in the long list. I think this is superior work. It's shocking that I've never read Barbara Kingsolver. And maybe 50, 80 pages too long. We could have done with a just. I could have pumped the brakes there a little bit, but everything about this is good and worthy, and I wept. And Demon's a fabulous character for modern literature. That sits alongside Holden Caulfield. I've seen a lot of the reviews talk about Huck Finn. Well, I like Holden Caulfield because he's an unreliable narrator. He's not. And it's not that he means to be unreliable. Demon just doesn't understand necessarily all the moving parts of the world he exists in, but he's got a good, like Huck Finn, he has a good heart, like Holden is, like poor Tar in Melvin Burgess's Junk. Fine work with, and one thing I should say about it, totally sticks the landing. The last quarter of the book, and then the coda, when we get to the final stage of Demon's life, or the final stage covered by this telling, absolutely lands it. Marvelous. Lots of great characters, too many to mention here, but I think worth your time. After that, I read. I've got a video about what I picked up next, so I'll put that in. Last full day at the spa today, so we're here for breakfast tomorrow and then off to my wife's parents for Shabbat. There's still plenty more reading to be done this week. Finished Demon Copperhead last night, taking on Mick Herron's short stories, Dolphin Junction, many of which feature characters I've met in other works of his and other series. So Zoe Bohm from her quartet, and Jackson Lamb from the Spy Stories, and then some other standalone short mysteries. I'll let you know how it goes. Dolphin Junction by Mick Herron is a collection of short stories. I've read all of the Slough House novels to date, and I've read the first 2, Zoe Bohm, which were an earlier series. Zoe Bohm shows up here. Jackson Lamb has a short story here, and then there's some other sort of standalone stories, each one with a little twist. So each one is a misdirection. I thought this was the guy in the narrator. That's whose eyes we were seeing through. It turns out he misunderstood the whole thing. It's stuff we've seen before plenty of times, but skillfully done enough that each time, even though after you read this every short story in here has some kind of twist, and even after you read the first 2 and the next story you're reading, there's a twist and something, all is not as it seems, and something's going to be revealed. Each time I'm sucked in, and maybe that says something more about me as a reader than the writing, but I was all in every time. Erin took me for a ride every single time. Great collection, good stuff. My wife read this, having never read any of the other stories, never read any other Mick Herron, but she was looking for things to read. She picked up this while she was waiting for me to finish Demon Copperhead, and she enjoyed this as well. She enjoyed the spy stuff more than she really enjoyed the Jackson Lamb story, having never seen anything to do with Jackson Lamb, which she prefers more than the private detective stuff. So the Zoe Bohm stories, there was a lot of her partner, Joe, her husband, Joe Silverman, and his obsession with Chandler, and I've read all Chandler, so I loved all those references and he goes to call on somebody who's worth $4 million, or that's a direct quote from the opening of The Big Sleep, and that's referenced here. So things like that, my world of connections was buzzing, and my synapses were flashing the whole time. So my wife didn't pick up on any of those. She still got a lot out of this and had fun. So that's Dolphin Junction, short stories by Mick Herron, and here is me finishing Dolphin Junction and picking up my next book. And the next book was Hotel du Lac, which I started reading Friday morning while we were still at the spa, but then we ended up talking to friends we bumped into. This is how Israel is such a small country, that we go and stay in this spa, holds maybe 200 guests in the north of Israel, and then we bump into people that we've known for 30 years, so we chat to them. So we left the spa Friday afternoon, made it to my in-laws, and finished this Friday night, finished this Saturday morning. So this is a Booker Prize winner from 1984, which I've been aware of since about 1984. I'm reasonably sure my mother had this on her side table, and so in my head I sort of dismissed it as a mumsy book and wasn't something I ever felt the need to read. And I remember there was they made a BBC play, filmed play version of it. It was written by Christopher Hampton, maybe, with Anna Massey in the playing Edith. And who else? I didn't remember, but this week. I looked in Wikipedia, and Denham Elliott was playing Philip Neville. Anyway, just all of it looked not aimed at me 40 years ago, which is probably true. But coming to it now, it didn't have the joyous experience that I was hoping to have. It's very dry. It's very restrained. It took me a while to realize that the character, the narrator at the heart of this, Edith, who is a writer of romances, and she's taken herself off to the Hotel du Lac by herself because there's been some kind of scandal in her life in London. She's been advised by all her friends that she needs to get out of the picture a little bit. It took me a while to realize how old she was supposed to be. And maybe it's because I remember this book from 40 years ago, so I just thought she was of an age. And then you find out that she's only 39. I say only because now, I married 40 years ago, I'm now 54, so I'm on the other side of that, much older than Edith. But there's a sort of sense that I thought originally she might be in her 50s. But no, for 39, still vital in all the ways. Well, be vital even after 39, I'm told. But there was just something a little old-fashioned, a little drier. Yes, it's got wit, and the observations are great. I think it's a hard trick to pull off, having a character who is a writer and therefore a perennial observer of other people, and making that the character in the book where you have to observe and note other people is just a little breaking the fourth wall kind of. It's not the right expression, but a peeling of the onion. Which I'm not sure worked 100% for me. And then the ending I didn't quite understand either, except that life goes on, which is a kind of sort of harsh way to finish off this kind of book. Only 180 pages, so easy to read, definitely worthwhile. I'm pleased, so after my video where I sort of poo-pooed caring about the book earlies, the long list, I'm pleased that I'm still discovering books from the shortlist and long list in the course of my lifetime, that I haven't got to before. And I hope I will keep doing that. I think backlist is important. I know that on BookTube we're very focused on frontlist books and reading the latest and commenting, and I'm guilty of that as anybody. I've got the new Colson Whitehead lined up, and I'm excited to get to it and then tell you about it. But I think it's important that we carry on reading backlist and understanding the framework and what's gone before, just to keep ourselves fresh and get some perspective on all these new books. There's long list and tens of books that you need to get through in order to join the conversation. Sometimes the conversation is back here in 1984. Doesn't have to be the most winning thing, but I'm pleased that I have this and it go on the shelf, and it's great. That's Hotel du Lac by Anita Bruckner. I thought maybe this would make me want to read a whole lot more Bruckner. It didn't exactly. Maybe I'll read another one, but I'm not rushing in the way that I have done with other authors I've discovered, Percival Everett and James Baldwin and authors that I've got to, and Claire Keegan, that I said, okay, I really want to read more. This was good. It didn't draw me in to go on a Bruckner binge. After that, I read Crooked Letter by Tom Franklin, which pairs well with Demon Copperhead, actually. This is a sort of noirish, southern set story spanning 20, 25 years in the lives of our protagonists. I got this because Todd Goldberg, who runs, I think, an MFA program somewhere on the West Coast, and is one of the contributors to a podcast called Literary Disco, which I think is kind of on hiatus, but for a while they were putting out regular episodes, and I tuned in. He's got he's very opinionated and got lots of he's got a foul mouth, and he's a fun guy, and he's been raving about this for last 3 or 4 years, and found a copy in a secondhand shop. Crooked Letter is part of the spelling that children are taught in the South for Mississippi, which is that area. So it's M-I, crooked letter, I, crooked letter, I, crooked, I, crooked letter, I, hunchback, I, Mississippi. So crooked letter is the middle of that rhyme that kids are taught to spell Mississippi, which gives you the sense of place, and that flows all the way through it. So, as I say, it pairs well with Demon Copperhead, but where Demon Copperhead was about addiction and helplessness and despair, this has racial tension at the heart of it. So, two friends, when they were teenagers, one a white boy and one an African American boy, make friends. Their parents aren't happy about it. There is history and secrets, and then there's a time jump. Something happens back then when the boys are 16, 17, and there's a time jump forward to now where another girl has gone missing, and fingers are pointed, and secrets will be revealed, and lots going on. So plotty, good. This one it was nominated for the Edgar Award, which is sort of crime award. And I like those niche awards. You often find things that fall off the beaten track. That in Booker season, it's interesting to look at other awards, whether it be comic books or romance, which I don't read, but crime, even science fiction. All these awards are ways of surfacing books and that you may not have come across otherwise. So even if you're elbow deep in Booker season, I think it's always worth taking a look at other awards and just seeing. Especially the genre ones, because books will show up there which won't be in the conversation anywhere else. Anyway, this was terrific. I read this in one day, and that is Crooked Letter by Tom Franklin. Secrets are revealed, and all is resolved in a perfectly satisfying and beautifully written, with the whiff of the South all the way through it. So I like that. Crooked Letter by Tom Franklin. And after that, I started kind of crime-ish, but I wanted to do quick books. I know I want to get to Coals on my head. So it's another Georges Simenon, another Maigret for me. This is A Man's Head. This is, I think, a more recent translation, translated by Geoffrey Sainsbury. And this is part of my project to read all of Maigret in publication order. First published in the 1920s, and he was publishing, I think, through to the 1970s. And he's solid. Maigret's a solid detective, and this is 130 pages, and things happen, and good police work is done before mobile phones existed. So looking forward to that, and then on to Coals on My Head. And that is more than enough conversation for anyone. 25 minutes. God bless. Hope you're keeping well. Bye. So we're staying on the ground floor in a garden room. That takes you down to the pool down there. I haven't stayed down here before. But I'm going to take you in the elevator up to the restaurant, because this is one of my favourite views. This hotel was built in the hills in the north of Israel, and originally was established as a sanitarium. And just as you come up from the ground floor, the whole building is on a slant, and you have this glorious view. Time for breakfast.